The problem that the OBM is solving is taking that running of the business off your plate so you can drive more revenue and, quite frankly, stay in your zone of genius, stay in the reason why you started this business in the first place.
Well, hello and welcome back to the Amanda Kaufman Show. And I'm so excited about our next guest. This is Ashley Connell, CEO and founder of the Prowess Project. She is a fearless entrepreneur and fearless women's advocate, landing her thought leadership pieces in Forbes, Austin Business Journal, and at South by Southwest, right? So look, Ashley and I met when we were at a networking event together, and then somehow over tacos just got to talking about operations and process. And I was like, oh my gosh, this lady is a genius. So right then and there, I was like, we must podcast. We must. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Ashley Connell. Welcome to the show.
I have been so excited about this, yes, since the tacos. And genius, not sure about that. I'm not sure I'm going to own the genius, but...
Oh, you must. You must. It's so good. So when you first introduced to me, like, what it is that you actually do, I actually had to ask you, because you said, you place OBMs with founders. And I was like, what's that? Let's maybe just start there. Like, what is an OBM? What does that stand for? And what do you really help people with?
Yeah, sure. So what an OBM is an online business manager. And the problem that they solve for CEOs, mainly coaches, consultants, agency owners, what I'd like to call micro businesses, is they're the operator. They're the person in there who is helping them with the running of the business strategy, but also will execute on their recommendations. So really this cross between COO and virtual assistant.
Love it. And a COO is a chief operating officer if you're new in the entrepreneurship space. And, I remember when I actually started as an entrepreneur, everybody pretty much said right off the cuff, like, go ahead and get yourself a virtual assistant. So I'm really curious, like, when somebody's making the decision to engage an OBM versus hiring a virtual assistant, like, what is the really key distinction there? What's the difference?
So with a virtual assistant, first, we love virtual assistants, right? Like, you want to knock some stuff out, boom, virtual assistant. The difference is where do you want to spend your time as the CEO? Do you want someone who's going to come in as a thought partner, someone who has run businesses before, someone who has seen all of the problems and knows how to fix them so that you can just delegate that problem to them versus delegating the entire project and step by step of exactly what you need that person to get done? If you want that more hands-on, the latter, that's a VA, and you're going to be very hands-on with that. If you want someone, again, who has the expertise, the thought leadership, and is almost like a pseudo business partner, that's your OBM.
I was in a networking conversation just this week, and somebody was saying that they, their next level they believed was in getting a partner. And when I was reminded immediately of a conversation you and I had, and I was like, so why, what's the main driver behind wanting to have a partner? And simple answer was capacity, just not being able to not being able to sell more because they were getting tapped out on capacity. And I immediately thought, OBM, right? When you need a business manager, because the thing that people don't really, I think, properly appreciate about the possibility of bringing a partner in is that's like a marriage, right?
Yes. I was just about to say that. And what I have seen when people bring in partners is they don't date their business partner for very long. They bring them in and then give away a massive chunk of equity of their business. And then, oh dear, 6 months down the line, we have a problem. So why not instead hire someone fractionally who has done this before, who has been vetted, who has been trained. And yes, you're going to pay, but you're not going to give up any equity.
And I think like that's something that a lot of business owners don't totally understand. Like when you give up equity, what does that actually mean? Like, well, I'll let you walk us through. Like, what's the consequence of giving up equity? To have somebody share in the profit, or because I think a lot of people, the reason they do that is they're actually not cash flowing the business very well.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
they think, I'm going to get free work out of somebody. I'll just promise on the future. And it's almost like the same psychology of debt, like I'll pay for it now and I'll get the money now and then I'll be able to pay it back later. I think it's kind of the same attitude a lot of people have when they bring on the partner. So what's more typical, I guess, in terms of an arrangement with an OBM? Like what can people expect to maybe spend on it? Does it have to be a full-time person? Like, what problem does this actually really solve?
Well, let's take a step back here. Most CEOs, business owners who are in the, let's call it professional services space, or again, coaching, or have a skill, they're an artist.
Mm-hmm.
And they probably came out of corporate and they're like, I don't want to I want to work for myself and I'm a great marketer. So now I'm going to start a marketing consultancy and start a marketing agency. And that's all great. And they know marketing backwards and forwards. What they don't know is how to run a small business. And that may not be the most leveraged use of their time. And what I mean by that is learning how to run a small business and spending their time doing things that don't come super easily, that aren't revenue generating, that may not get them to their goals. What will get them to their goals is that artistry, is that expertise, is the whole reason why people hire them in the first place. So the problem that the OBM is solving is taking that running of the business off your plate so you can drive more revenue and, quite frankly, stay in your zone of genius, stay in the reason why you started this business in the first place.
What are some of the responsibilities or projects or tasks that an OBM is like really suited for? Because I certainly heard the same thing, honestly, almost from day one. As an entrepreneur, it's like you need to work on your business, not in your business. But like, what does that really mean in very plain Jane terms for, let's say it's a coach or it is a consultant of some kind? Like what are some of the things that maybe perhaps people don't realize that A, those activities are required to run a successful business, or B, they don't realize that they're not necessarily the best person to do that? Like, what are some good examples?
Absolutely. So we have a full transformation process that our OBMs take these CEOs through.
Mm-hmm.
And what that looks like is, first, a deep dive audit. They need to understand your business. What I want you to hear when I say audit is they are onboarding themselves. They are taking that time to understand your business and know what to look for. From
Mm-hmm.
there, they are doing a massive data dump. They are understanding all of your current data and where you want to go, establishing those KPIs for you, and building out a full communication process so that you can reach those goals. From there, they're looking at all of your operations, your systems, and your technology, and automating the heck out of it. How do we work smarter, not harder? From there, they are looking at what we call demand generation engine. So what is the alignment between your ideal customer or your ideal buyer, that message, the channel, the full-on nurture experience, the offer, and then the client experience? What is that whole thing? How do we optimize it? How do we automate it? And how do we make it more aligned? So again, the entire business is more efficient. And then it is growth and maintenance. It is looking at all of your data and ensuring that you're making wise decisions on, if your goal is more profit, what resources should we be allocating where in order to reach that goal? If it is double down on revenue, again, how that looks different and forecasting that out. So those are some examples of what an online business manager can do for a CEO.
Mm-hmm. Often when I'm thinking about business, I think about client acquisition, fulfillment. I think about the compliance, right, piece of things. So, your finances and taxes and like all of that kind of stuff. What do you see people doing in their businesses that causes them to stay kind of at a ceiling where if an OBM came in, it would be like that quantum leap?
Quite a few things. Three things that I see though. Nothing is repeatable. So there is no systems, there is no SOPs, no leverage, nothing that can be done without the CEO. That's the number one thing. Second,
Ooh,
data.
that's really, really huge. Like, I think we should come back to that, but keep going.
Second is data, is understanding what data they have and then taking that, and the OBM will provide insights on what to go do next. And then
Mm-hmm.
the big problem that I see after they can kind of handle all of that is understanding and going through with the CEO, what problem are you really solving for whom? And getting really clear on that. Oftentimes, the OBMs need to take the CEOs through a niching strategy. So, really getting very finite on exactly who it is, what this buyer looks like, and what that offer is, and why that CEO. So those are the three things. Again, it's
What's coming up for me, and because you mentioned like especially the first thing several years ago, I was. Do you ever get those intrusive thoughts? Like you're just in the kitchen and you get
yeah,
like a dark thought or like a weird thought,
all the
and you're
time.
just like, "What the hell is wrong with you?" So yeah, that 1000% happened, but there was actually utility in it. So I still remember I was standing in my bedroom and I was just knackered. I was so
Yeah.
tired. And I had this intrusive thought of just like, so what happens if you get hit by a bus? And then I was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my God, what actually does happen if you get hit by a bus? And so like the first place I kind of went with that, because it went from being an intrusive thought to an obsessive one, was like, do I have my estate in order? Do I have life
Yeah.
insurance and things like that kind of in place, just sort of from a estate planning kind of and business continuity. But then it became a really curious question, which was like, yeah, but like, what if I got hit by a bus? Like, how do I?
Crack me up.
I'll bet you didn't think we were going to go this direction, but here we are.
No, I didn't, but I'm digging it. I'm digging it.
But seriously, it changed my entire business because I realized I was like, everything up to that point, like I was the sun at the center of this system. And if I went out, it's just like, okay, life on earth as we know it ceases, right? And I was just like, that cannot stand. So I got like, that's why I have the brand The Coaches Plaza, not just like coaching by Amanda Kaufman, because I wanted to have the capacity, and I have expanded that capacity to have like other coaches work inside the brand, right? For example. So what really came up for me as you were talking about this is, of course, the memory of that intrusive, then obsessive thought about like, how do you take yourself out of the business? And I want to ask you this question because I'm eager to hear your perspective on it. Why is it so important for a founder and CEO to prioritize as soon as possible their like removal from the day-to-day business activities? Why is that so important?
It's so important for your own mental happiness. Like honestly, that's what I keep hearing over and over again. Sure, it's important for the business, and sure, like you want to work like in your on your business, not in your business. But what I'm hearing more than anything is a relief factor from
Mm-hmm.
all of these CEOs who don't have the pressure of, oh my gosh, what if I get hit by a bus? Or, oh my gosh, I'm missing another T-ball game. Or, oh my gosh, I haven't read a book in 18 years and I love reading a book. Oftentimes, people get into business because they believe it's going to give them more flexibility. They believe that they are going to make more money. They believe that their time is going to be theirs. And then fast forward, they've been in it for 4 years and it's nothing like that because they're doing it all themselves.
Yeah.
But what happens is they're doing it all themselves, but they don't have the skills or the desire to be doing those things. And
Mm.
therefore it becomes half-assed, right? Like you just don't have the time. So why not have an expert in there doing it for you? So again, you can stay in your zone of genius. And I don't know, do something crazy like go on a laptop free vacation for 2 weeks. Like, wouldn't that be amazing? Like, sure,
Yeah, it sounds
it's the
incredible.
doomsday. It's a doomsday of getting hit by a bus, but it's also the, oh my gosh, I am going to go to Tuscany. One of our clients did this, and she was like, that right there was worth its weight in gold because
Mhm.
I did a bucket list activity of going to Tuscany, and I didn't look at my phone once because I had my OBM running the business.
That's so important. I had a coach of mine say years ago that business is relationships. And he had us like lead through this thought exercise about, well, you've got relationships with your clients, you've got relationships with your suppliers, you've got relationships with, and what I've noticed as somebody who helps people launch businesses is very often, there's trauma. The toxic work environment, for example. I know that was certainly part of my story was like, I can't stand these bosses. I feel like I have no choice, da 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 da. And so entrepreneurship really feels like um, a very viable solution when you're in that kind of a pain point. Wherever you go, there you are. And the
Yes.
truth is that, yeah, there are jerks, there are people in the world that are unkind. But the growth or the personal development of learning to interact and befriend lots of different personalities is, in my opinion, one of the biggest unlocks of entrepreneurial success. Because if you can be a friendly person who can build your own popularity by continuing to expand into different networks, etc., that's like, and I'm maybe making an assumption here, but one of the things that came up for me is I'm like, well, why would I hire somebody to work in like so many different critical aspects of my business? Why aren't they just running their own business? So, why don't you help address that too,
Great
right? It's
question.
like, why would somebody want to come into my podunk little business, right? It would be a thought I think a lot of people would have, and if they're that good, why aren't they doing their own business, right? So, what do you say to that?
So technically they are. They're an OBM who is running their own business as a business manager. And what they do not like oftentimes is exactly what you said gives a lot of success to business owners. And that's the relationship building, that's the selling, that's
Mm-hmm.
like their personality is more of a, hey, I'm going to go into a room and crank through crank on the computer, do a bunch of Excel spreadsheets and automations and make my client so proud. And I
That's it.
think that is their personality. And that's what we kept hearing. A lot of them are caregivers. A lot of them um, are people who want to please,
Mm-hmm.
and not in an unhealthy way. But again, because of that, it makes such a great compatible match with the CEO who is more the visionary, who is more of the ideas person, the relationship person, the artist. And it just works really, really well.
I love that. I remember when I very first started getting into hiring, I was so scared of it because I knew that like I as an employee, I was like I became unemployable as the joke goes among entrepreneurs. And so I made the erroneous assumption that everybody else thinks that way. And the truth is that if you're entrepreneurial, if you're authentically entrepreneurial, you're somebody who sees problems in the world that haven't been solved quite right yet, so you just take on all those problems, right? And the thing is like that's a really unique way to be in the world. And most people want a little more stability than that. And I think like
Mm-hmm.
the thing that I had to learn was, my business's success and my business's growth meant that I had earned a leadership that allowed me to create the space for someone who, like you're describing, is looking for more like job security. They're looking more for that thing to be a part of as opposed to having to be the sun at the center of that solar system kind of thing.
And that was another thing that we hear a lot from both CEOs and OBMs is the loneliness factor of entrepreneurship. Especially if you're
Mm.
coming from corporate, you typically have a team that you're constantly bouncing ideas off of, or you have a manager who is telling you right or wrong, or ultimately making that decision. And that's why I specifically use the term thought partner when I'm describing the OBM, because they are coming into conversations and planning and strategy, like strategy conversations with you, with the background of ops and operating a business, and almost sparring with you to make the best decision on your business moving forward. And so you're just not lonely anymore. It's not, again, it's the relief off your shoulders that you're not making all the decisions blindly and by yourself.
Or even just like, this is a awful little phrase, but I think it's pretty good. Decisions that are below your pay grade, right? Like if you can have somebody on your team
Yeah,
who's able to make decisions, and if you're wondering, dear listener, how do you do this? You set up a policy. You set up a policy of like, hey,
totally.
decisions under this dollar amount, I don't even want to hear about it, right? And you put controls in place, right? Because whatever gets monitored is going to be adhered to for sure. Like I think like the one danger, the thing that I would encourage if you're listening and you're like, yay, I never have to learn technology. That's true, but and also you have a responsibility to create the revenue. It's still your
Yes.
business. You're owning the brand. Like you've got to actually really show up for this. But the amount of time that it's going to save you and the efficiency and effectiveness of what you do, it's a cool strategy.
Well, and just the satisfaction of what your day-to-day looks like. That has been one of the biggest eye-openers for a lot of our clients and prospects is we built out a day in the life simulator for CEOs. Like what would it be like to have an OBM? And it walks through what that could look like specifically for them. And it just paints the picture of, oh my gosh, what if my dream life, where all I'm doing is serving clients and creating relationships, really did come true? And oh, it can. And this is the solution to make it happen.
That's so cool. So Ashley, what's the best way for people to follow you to find out more about the OBM life? Maybe they're thinking it might be a perfect OBM, or maybe they're thinking I might need to hire one. Like, what's the best way to follow up with you?
Absolutely. So we are at Prowess Project on all socials. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So that's Ashley Connell. And then also that day in the life simulator, like I was saying, that's free. It takes 2 minutes. If you are a CEO who is interested in seeing like, hey, what could this look like for me? It is whyhireanobm.com.
Nice. I like it. I like the short domain. And listener, we'll put those links into the show notes for your reference. And before you go, make sure you hit subscribe and you leave an honest 5-star review. Like I know it was a 5-star review, but just make sure it's an honest one. But seriously, those reviews do wonders for helping people to choose where they spend their time when they're out on their evening walk or wherever you happen to be listening to us. And don't forget to follow up with the next goodness. Don't forget to share this with 3 people. After meeting Ashley, she was joking with me. She's like, Amanda, you got to get on the payroll because I just kept meeting so many business owners. I'm like, maybe you should talk to Ashley. If you're in that place where it's like, I need more than a VA, less than a partner, you might want to check this out. And yeah, Ashley, thanks so much for coming.
The pleasure is all mine. I've been so looking forward to this.
I love it. I love it. It was a blast. And listener, we'll see you on the next episode.